Have you ever met a stranger and felt like you had known them for a long time? It was as if there was an invisible thread between the two of you, something that no rational mind could explain. They came into your life without warning, without explanation, but at the exact moment you needed them the most. It could be a glance in a crowd, a chance conversation, or a seemingly random relationship that left a deep impression. That is not a coincidence. It is a kind of connection that the rational mind cannot understand, but the soul recognizes immediately. Carl Jung called this phenomenon synchronicity, meaningful synchronicity. It is when external events coincide with an internal state in a mysterious way that cannot be explained by cause and effect. Jung believed that important people come into our lives not by chance, but as a result of a process deep within the unconscious, where energy, memory, and symbols connect to a larger network, the collective unconscious. When the energies of two souls are in sync, their paths naturally cross, as if pre-programmed by an invisible plan beyond our understanding. At a deeper level, this is not simply emotion, attraction, or surface similarity. It is a resonance, a vibrational level in which the unconscious parts of us recognize something familiar in the other person. A profound reminder. It is as if our soul is responding to a symbol that only it understands, a symbol that is not conscious, but is alive and powerful in our inner life. And the special thing is these encounters are often unplanned. You cannot find them by looking for them. They come when you least expect them, but your soul is ready. It is your inner state, the energy you are emitting, that determines who comes into your life. The presence of someone is a response from the universe to your deepest psychological state. But why is this important? Because if you are not aware of this working, you will see everything as coincidence, missing the signs that are telling you about yourself. Every person who comes into your life is a mirror. They reflect back to you a part of yourself that you need to recognize. Maybe it is a part you have forgotten. Maybe it is a wound you need to heal. Maybe it is a strength you have not dared to tap into. That means encounters are not simply outside. They are honest reflections from within. If you are in a period of uncertainty, you are more likely to attract people who hurt you. If you are learning to love yourself, you will meet someone who shows you that you are still incomplete. But if you are awakened and fulfilled, you will attract souls of the same frequency who are not here to save you, but to accompany you. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." If you have not seen yourself, you will think that everything that happens is due to fate. But in fact, it is you, with your unrecognized energies, who are drawing your own life. So do not underestimate the unexplainable feelings when you meet someone. The first vibration, the strange feeling of familiarity, or even the inner turmoil when that person appears, all carry a message. The universe is never silent. The question is whether you listen. This is not just a video about love. This is an invitation to look at the relationships in your life in the light of depth psychology and spiritual energy. From now on, every time you feel a special connection with someone, stop and ask, what is it in me that calls them to me? Because that answer will not only help you understand the other person, it will also be the key to you. And that is when the journey truly begins. There are encounters that require no introduction. No need to know the other person's name, past, or other mundane details. Just make eye contact, and you feel something vibrate deep inside. A feeling that is both strange and familiar, both confusing and strangely comforting. It is not an illusion. It is a soul recognition, a state that Carl Jung believed was beyond the realm of reason, but completely real at the deepest level of consciousness. Jung did not see relationships as simply interactions between two people. He believed that behind every connection were the workings of archetypes, primitive images of the collective unconscious that we all share. When you meet someone who evokes a special feeling in you, it is likely that they have triggered an archetype in you, perhaps an ideal lover, anima or animus, perhaps a symbol of a mother, father, teacher, and this happens completely outside the control of the conscious mind. For example, a woman may feel intensely attracted to a man without her knowing why, because he evokes the image of her animus, the unconscious male archetype. Conversely, a man may be inexplicably attracted to a woman, not because of anything she says or does, but because she embodies his anima, the unconscious feminine part he has not yet explored. That is why there are connections that resonate so strongly, even though we have never had time to understand or develop normal feelings. It's not a simple attraction, it's a meeting of the deepest parts of the soul. Such meetings can be disorienting because they defy logic. They can't be analyzed in terms of suitable or not suitable, have a future or not. Instead, they open a portal, a gateway to a deeper self, where the unconscious begins to speak. Such meetings can pull us out of our comfort zone, forcing us to confront ourselves. And that's what makes them so powerful. Jung believed that these deep meetings come from the collective unconscious, an energy field where all souls are connected through shared symbols and experiences. This is why we sometimes feel as if we know someone, even when we're meeting them for the first time. Your soul may have recognized a part of their soul, not on a conscious level, but on a deeper level, one that transcends time, space, and language. But this resonance is not always gentle. Sometimes the person who resonates with you the most is also the one who confuses you the most. They may awaken parts of you that you have forgotten, or even dared not confront. And this creates a kind of soul tension, both attractive and challenging. It is not a sign to run away. It is an invitation to turn inward, to observe yourself more. Because in every vibration, there is a message. A symbol is coming to life. A part of you is asking to be heard. And sometimes the other person is simply an activator. They are not there to stay forever, but to awaken something in you that has been dormant for too long. So instead of asking, should I be with this person? Ask, what are they reflecting in me? This is the question that opens the real door to awareness. Because the deepest purpose of relationships is not to complete each other, but to bring us closer to our truest selves. There are souls who come not to stay. They come to remind, to activate, to awaken. They come not by reason, but by frequency. And when two frequencies meet, resonance occurs like a piece of music that does not need a conductor, just a heart quiet enough to listen, and a soul open enough to receive. Therefore, the important thing is not who comes or goes, but what you have learned from that resonance. Do you dare to look straight into the awakened part of you? Are you brave enough to face yourself in the invisible mirror called the other person? Because if it does, then whether the relationship lasts or ends, you come out of it a more mature, clearer version of yourself. And that is the true gift of profound encounters that no words can explain. There is an often overlooked truth. What draws us so strongly to others is not so much them, but our own unrecognized unconsciousness. We do not love others for who they are, but because they awaken something in us. Relationships, as seen through the lens of Jungian psychology, are not simply interactions between two individuals, but rather a constant reflection between two inner worlds, where ego, shadow, and unhealed wounds collide, creating scenarios that are both beautiful and painful. Jung called this phenomenon projection. When we have not recognized our unconscious, we unconsciously project it onto others. A woman who has not healed her fear of abandonment may be attracted to cold, distant men, not because she loves them, but because her mind is trying to replay the old scenario in search of the healing she has never received. Conversely, a man with a wound of inferiority may be attracted to domineering women because his unconscious is calling for a confrontation with his self-negating part. And here is the painful paradox. The people who hurt us the most are the ones with whom our souls feel the most connected. Because at the unconscious level, you are not looking for security, you are looking for fulfillment. And fulfillment sometimes has to start with looking directly at the unhealed wound. Intense, confusing, painful relationships are often not the wrong person, but the right lesson. Those people come to shine a light on the part of you that you have denied. They come not to pamper you, but to awaken you. And if you are not aware enough, you will fall into a loop. You will meet someone else in a different form, but the scenario is the same. Because the unseen wound will always find a way to repeat itself in the hope of healing. Have you ever wondered why you keep falling into the same type of relationship? Why do you keep being attracted to someone who can't love you properly? Why do you leave one painful relationship only to enter another with a different face? It's not bad luck. It's the darkness repeating the same old script until you wake up. Jung warned, until you make your unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. What this means is, if you don't acknowledge the hidden parts of yourself, your fears, your traumas, your childhood obsessions, they will shape how you love, how you choose your partner, and how you suffer in silence. And then you call it fate. But the truth is, you are not being punished by fate. You are being led by your own unhealed self, and it is only when you start observing what you feel in the relationship, especially the negative emotions, jealousy, fear, dependence, hurt, that you begin to touch the root of it all. It is not the other person who is the problem, but what they awaken in you. They are the mirror, not the culprit. So instead of asking, why did they treat me like this? Try asking, why did I accept this? What is it about me that makes me allow this to happen again? This is not about blaming yourself, but the only way to get out of the loop, because you cannot change the other person, but you can begin the journey of self-discovery. Every relationship, loving or hurtful, is a classroom. If you learn the lesson, you grow. If you avoid it, you repeat it. The problem is not the old person or the new person. It is about you. Are you ready to see yourself? True love doesn't come to fill, but to illuminate. A healthy relationship doesn't avoid the darkness. It embraces it, together. But to get there, you have to dare to look at yourself first. And that starts with accepting a simple truth. Relationships are never random. They are mirrors, reflecting exactly what is incomplete inside you. As you change, the image in the mirror changes, and that's when you begin to truly love, not in search of completion, but in sharing the wholeness you have found within yourself. We often mistakenly think that relationships that hurt us are wrong, are things to avoid, are cuts that should not happen in life. But if you look with the eyes of awareness, you will see that there are wounds that do not come to destroy you, but to open the door inside where you have never entered. Carl Jung once said that the people who hurt us the most are often the ones who bring us the deepest lessons, not because they are right, but because they awaken in us parts that have long been buried, the neediness, the fear of abandonment, the feeling of unworthiness, or the broken self-esteem. They come like a storm, but after that storm, there is a sky that you have never seen before, the sky of awareness. And the truth is, not all painful relationships are wrong. Some relationships are not meant to stay, but to change you. They come to end an old version of you, to force you to shed the mask you've worn for so long. Maybe you lived as if you didn't need anyone, until you met someone who left you feeling empty when they left. Maybe you thought you were strong, until they came in and made you realize that you still had a lot of unhealed wounds. Relationships like these are intense. They don't follow the usual path of love. They come fast, deep, and fierce. They leave you confused, doubtful, tormented. But it's in that chaos that you begin to see the truth. Not about the other person, but about yourself. You realize how long you've lived in a state of need. You realize how much you've compromised to keep love. You see how your own boundaries have been erased just because you wanted to stay. That's why Jung called such people lesson bearers. They are not enemies. They are people who bring you face to face with the darkness. They don't break you. They make you see the cracks that were always there. They don't disorient you. They make you realize that you never really knew who you were. But there is a mistake that many people make. They try to hold on to these relationships in the hope that eventually the other person will change. That if you love enough, sacrifice enough, everything will be fine. But the truth is, not all relationships are meant to last. Some have only one job: to open your eyes. And when that job is done, it's time to leave. If you cling to someone who has fulfilled their role in your journey, you will be stuck in a painful loop. You won't allow yourself to move on. You refuse to grow because you believe that love must be held, must be fought for. But true love never asks you to compromise yourself to keep someone else. True love is where you can be yourself, not where you have to constantly prove yourself worthy. So, when you meet someone who hurts you but you can't forget, stop and ask, what did I learn from this relationship? The answer lies not in the other person, but in how you changed. Did you start loving yourself more? Did you learn to set clearer boundaries? Did you dare to let go of emotional dependence, to choose inner freedom? If the answer is yes, then that relationship, even though it was full of tears, was still a blessing. Not because it was beautiful, but because it was necessary. There are relationships that don't come to accompany you to the end of your journey, but only to help you start that journey. And then one day when you are at peace, enough to look back, you will no longer resent them. You will thank them, not for what they did, but because they helped you see yourself more clearly. And in that clarity, you are no longer the same person. You are more mature, stronger, and more awake. That is what painful connections really bring. Not an ending, but a beginning disguised as a breakup. Have you ever wondered why you keep coming back to the same type of person, the same ending, even though you swear you'll never do it again? There are strange loops in love, those painful relationships where you've fallen, yet you're drawn back as if by some invisible force. That's not a coincidence. It's your unconscious trying to send you a message you're not listening to. Carl Jung believed that what's repressed in the unconscious returns, not as a memory, but as a destiny. The unseen wound resurfaces, not to torment you, but so that you'll finally have to face it. Every person you meet in life is a part of your inner mirror, and if the part of you that hasn't healed is still there, you'll inevitably attract people or situations that bring that part back to life. Imagine someone who has been afraid of abandonment since childhood. Unconsciously, they are attracted to people who are elusive, emotionally unstable, or who keep their distance, not because they want to be hurt, but because their unconscious is trying to replay the same situation, hoping that this time it will end differently. This time they won't be abandoned. This time they will be chosen. But often, the result is the same hurt all over again, just with a different face. This is the nature of the karmic cycle, not the universe punishing them, but the unconscious calling for healing. If you haven't noticed it yet, you may think, I'm unlucky in love. But if you start to observe, you will see that there is a pattern in the way you love, the way you forgive, the way you cling, and the way you lose yourself. Jung was not pessimistic. On the contrary, he believed that this repetition is an opportunity for awakening, because every time the cycle happens, if you are conscious enough, you are one step closer to breaking it. Not by blaming the other person, but by asking, what am I repeating? What part of myself am I trying to heal through this person? Maybe you are trying to regain validation from a parent figure who never gave you enough. Maybe you are seeking security from someone who is exactly like the person who made you insecure. And if you never stop to ask, you will continue to follow the inertia, loving blindly, sacrificing unconsciously, and getting hurt as a matter of course. So how do you break the cycle? First, be conscious. You cannot change what you do not recognize. Look back at your past relationships, not to torment yourself, but to observe what repeats. What emotions are constantly present? What role do you play in each story? When you see the pattern, you begin to have a choice. You are no longer controlled by the shadow. Second, facing the original pain. This is not easy, but it is necessary. You must dare to look back at the early experiences where the wound began. Dare to admit that you do not need another person to save you, but that you need to embrace yourself with all your wounds, weaknesses, and imperfections. Love cannot be healthy if it is an attempt to avoid the past. And finally, act from awareness, not from fear. Once you recognize the loop, you will see clearly which relationships are coming from healthy resonance, which are the familiar calls of old hurt. You will learn to set boundaries, to say no without guilt, and to stay with yourself when someone leaves. The truth is, you do not have to break the loop by finding the right person. You break it by becoming someone who is no longer controlled by the old mistakes. When you change your vibrational frequency, the old people will no longer attract you. They will gradually disappear as if they were never part of your journey. And when they do, you are not just breaking out of the loop, you are entering a new version of yourself. No relationship is meaningless, but not all relationships need to last. Some relationships are there to teach you how to love yourself before loving anyone else. And if you have learned that lesson, the end is no longer a loss. It is the beginning of a whole new way of loving from awareness, not from pain. After all the wounds, the cycles, the harsh lessons delivered through relationships, one final question always remains. So, what is true love? Is it real? And if so, why does it seem to only appear when we stop looking for it? Carl Jung never saw love as a mere emotion. For him, love is a spiritual force, a state where two souls have done enough inner work to truly meet at a deep level. It is not a connection of lack, but a union of fullness. It is not an attempt to possess, control, or fill each other, but a journey of growing together, expanding, spreading inner maturity. When you are not healed, love is often an attempt to fill. You seek someone to escape loneliness, to prove your worth, to cling to a temporary sense of security. But in that effort you lose yourself. You become a modified version of yourself in order to be accepted, and then you get tired. You feel small in a relationship that you thought was love. In fact, it is just dependence in a romantic name. True love does not work that way. It does not start from a feeling of needing someone, but from a state of wanting to share yourself in all your integrity. When you stop looking for someone to complete you, when you have learned to stand on your own, to heal yourself, to love yourself, you radiate a different kind of energy. It is an energy that does not demand, that does not beg, that does not control. It is the energy of freedom, and that attracts people who are free like you. When two free souls meet, a miracle happens. No one tries to change the other. No one is the center of the other. They meet not to tie down but to expand. They do not come to lean on but to accompany. Love becomes a space, not a prison. It is a place where both partners can be more of themselves, not less. Here's the interesting thing. Most people who find true love don't look for it. They meet when they are most true to themselves, when they are not trying to impress, when they are pursuing their own goals, when they have let go of the expectation that a relationship will save them from themselves. And that's not a coincidence. It's how the universe works. Jung once said, "You attract not what you want, but what you are." When you are a wounded soul, you attract wounded people. When you are an unhealed self, you attract experiences that force you to look at that wound. But when you have integrated enough of the forgotten parts of yourself, when you have bravely walked through the darkness, when you have stopped running away from loneliness and learned to talk to it, you no longer send out signals of need. And from then on, the people who enter your life are different. The softer, deeper, and more suitable. True love is not a state of seeing someone as everything, but a feeling, I am still me, but I am happier with you. The presence of the other person does not make us lose ourselves, but makes us more ourselves. They do not make us forget the path, but remind us why we started the journey. True love also does not promise that there will be no difficulties, but it is different in this. In the midst of difficulties, both do not retreat, do not blame, do not use each other as a shield to protect the ego. They step back, not to leave, but to understand each other better. They listen not to win, but to connect. They choose to stay not because they are afraid of losing, but because they respect the journey together. And the most special thing, this love makes you want to grow. It doesn't stop at emotions. It urges you to become a better version of yourself, not to please anyone, but because you see your potential in the other person's eyes. True love is an invitation to grow every day. So if you are wondering why you haven't met that love yet, go back to yourself. Ask, have I truly lived true to myself? Have I forgiven the past? What am I still carrying that doesn't belong to the present? Because only when you are truly yourself, nothing less, nothing more, will true love have a chance to recognize you. Because that love doesn't need you to find it. It just waits for you to be ready enough to see that you are worthy of a deep, free and mature connection, because you have created it from within. There is an almost paradoxical thing about the journey of finding love. Only when you stop looking for it from the outside will true love have a chance to find you. Not because you give up, but because you have moved from a state of lack to a state of plenty. And that fullness emits a very different kind of energy. An energy that makes others want to stay, not because you hold them back, but because they feel free when they are with you. Carl Jung constantly emphasized inside each person is an energy field, not only containing thoughts, memories, or emotions, but also the unconscious signals you send out every day. Those signals tell the world, who am I? What do I think I deserve? What do I accept in love? And the world responds, not by chance, but by correspondence. You attract to yourself people who exactly reflect the frequency you are living. If you still have unhealed wounds, you will attract people who will bring them to the surface, not to punish you, but to force you to see them. If you believe that love always comes with pain, you will find it, this time through someone else, but with the same familiar feeling. There is nothing wrong with that, but you need to know you are not stuck to the old pattern. You are stuck to your own unclarified energy. And the wonderful thing is, when you start working on yourself, when you go back, observe, heal, accept, love, then naturally, what no longer serves you will leave. Relationships that once made you anxious, doubtful, lost, will no longer attract you. Not because you have become cold, but because you have become awake enough to realize love is not adrift. It is clarity. You don't have to find the right person. You just have to be the right person. The person who, when they walk into a room, doesn't try to attract anyone, but whose energy changes everything around them. The person who, when they love, doesn't bet their life on someone else, but knows that they are still themselves, even when they love most deeply. The person who loves, not because they need to be fulfilled, but because they are enough. That doesn't mean you won't feel emotions, won't hurt, but you won't be controlled by unconscious reactions. You won't love for validation. You won't forgive for fear of loss. You won't settle for less, because you don't deserve more. You'll know when to retreat, when to stop, and when to stay, only when it truly nourishes you. Jung once said, "Loneliness doesn't come from not having someone around. It comes from not being able to be yourself around someone." And what's scarier than any breakup is the sacrifice you make to keep a relationship. True love never requires that. It comes when you stop trying to be someone else. When you're in a state of absolute honesty with yourself, you automatically eliminate fake relationships, and this creates space for real connections to come in. Not everyone you meet will stay, and not everyone who makes your heart flutter will always be the one for you. There are souls who just pass by to remind you of something. There are connections that last a few months, but help you grow for more than a decade. And there are reunions that never happen, because the timing isn't right. That doesn't mean love doesn't exist. It's just waiting for you to step into your phase and show up in the most appropriate form. So stop asking, when will love come? How do I find the right person? How do I get them back? Instead, start asking, who am I right now? What kind of energy am I emitting? Am I truly living up to my true self? Because the love you receive is always a reflection of the love you have for yourself. And when you start living as if you already have love, in the way you care for yourself, in the way you hold boundaries, in the way you speak your truth, in the way you say no to what is not right, you become a magnet for meaningful connections. There is no need to run. Love, as a response from the universe, will find you, not loudly, not in a hurry, but at the right time, with the right person, and at the right depth. That is what Carl Jung wanted us to understand. Love is not a journey of finding someone, but a journey of finding yourself. And when you find yourself, in acceptance, maturity, and awareness, you no longer ask who will come. You just know, if they come, there is resonance. If they stay, there is freedom. And if they leave, you are still you, whole, nothing missing. That is true love, not a destination, but the reward of having the courage to go through yourself.